So we're back at Jill's apartment after your first day of work, and we've already started to unlock some of the more features of the game, such as access to Danger U, which is a very, very thinly, it's almost not even fair to say thinly veiled, reference to the 4chan U board, which is focused more on Yuri content. And we also now have access to JC Elton's, which is barely not JC Denton from Deus Ex. We also revealed what Jill wants, which I forgot to pay attention to, as well as what she needs for the rest of the week. Right now, our big goal is making sure to re-up her subscription for virtual reality porn.
Mm-hmm. Very important.
Also, our other important goal is to remember to save. So let's check out Danger U, which is also in reverse order, just like the real 4chan, infuriatingly.
Ugh.
So one of the more noticeable things about Danger U is, it's the /U board on 4chan being about Fury. I've heard this Danger U described in reviews for this game as, what if 4chan was run by a bunch of lesbians, and that's kind of what it is about. It's mostly inconsequential stuff. The Miki concert plot line, if you could call it that, bears a lot of kind of throwbacks to, I don't know if you're familiar with it, the series Melody and Husky.
I think I've heard of that, yeah.
It was a manga adaptation of on one of the Japanese message boards that was about a girl trying to woo one of her classmates, and she was eventually successful.
Hooray!
But other than that, like, you get a little more world building from Danger U.
It's a little bit more of just seeing what everybody else is doing. Often just kind of... Honestly, you see Danger AU comparing about the state of the world more than you'll see in things like the Augmented Eye, which is kind of nice. Not to mention, like, I know that we're kind of out of the there's no girls on the internet era, but I don't know. I'm coming from a time where this was kind of a legitimate thing. It's kind of nice. Just to have kind of like one of the most infamous boards on the internet at least be shown with something of a female presence.
Yeah, it's a nice subversion at the very least.
Mm-hmm.
So this article here you'll find out later, but this is about Dana saving Kim. Kim was driven to a suicide attempt by Donovan's work environment, and Dana just happened to be there to save her, which is how she ended up dragging her into Valhalla.
So yeah, Dana's awesome. Just, in case you haven't.
Just clickbaity waste of space article.
Alice Rabbit. Oh, and don't trust this dog.
That's one of my favorite things in the whole game.
As it should be.
Alice Rabbit, I'm not... Maybe I just wasn't paying attention, or maybe I just didn't get the right customers to show up, but, like, Alice Rabbit seems like a plot line that really did not end up going much anywhere for me.
I thought they were implying that Alma was Alice Rabbit.
Maybe, there are some drinks that you need to serve Alma to get some dialogue, so maybe I just missed those. Maybe that kind of further fleshed it out. We'll try to get that this time around, but right now we're going to the shop, where I try to remember what Jill wanted. I think if I go back to the apartment, yeah, I get this. I get the screen. So she wants a hollow plant. If I don't buy that hollow plant whenever patrons order drinks, Jill will instantly forget what she was supposed to give them, and it's on me to try to remember what they said.
And if we can't even remember that we need a hollow plant from the tchotchke score, then yeah, we probably should not walk down that road.
Yeah, we have no chance.
Like, why would Jill so be soulfully staring out the window thinking of the holo plant? I don't know, but just at work, it's just that holo plant.
Yeah. On top of the holo plant, we're going to buy this Mulan tea. You'll see why later. This is one of the few diverging paths that you get in Valhalla as far as dialogue and endings go. And it's very early on, and you have no chance of knowing unless you either read ahead of time or just restarted the game.
You know, just like old games.
Yeah, it's just like old...
It's like old games that were kind of impossible to beat. Like, literally impossible to beat.
See, she will surely focus at work.
Hooray!
So we're going to save again. And then we are off to work for the second day.
Wednesday. Someone just really...
It's going to be real hard to talk about Dana without just saying she's the best every time she shows up on screen.
Yeah. Like, let's try not to turn every comment into nice.
But I guess, if we wanted to try to sound smart, we could say that this is real revealing about her character, especially whenever you take into account that news article earlier about how she acts without thinking, and now she's just like, I'm gonna put on this dope robot helmet, and now my head's stuck.
She's a woman who certainly, like, takes life as it goes. Like, if she sees a robot helmet, she'll just put that robot helmet on. If she sees somebody jumping off a building, she'll just rocket launch herself up and save them. Also, yeah,
So,
part number 1 on Jill the boy, Jill just kind of having a bit of a
they drop a
troubling
lot of
backstory.
hints about his, they drop a lot of hints about what he did before ending up at Valhalla, but they never outright say it. And this is like one of the first instances of, he runs into a white knight and he's screaming about he's not going back to Hong Kong. So he probably was up to some seedy stuff at some point, and maybe he's trying to reform his life, maybe he's just laying low. It's never really clear, and I don't think it's really that important, because, this story's not about him. Which is one of the more unique things about this game, is that, visual novels don't tend to be about the main character all that much. They tend to be about how they relate to the rest of the cast in various ways. Whereas this, like, the plot of Valhalla, insofar as there is one, it's a bit fragmented, is about Jill.
Which is kind of a nice
She is very much the main character. Yeah.
The one thing I will give about Gil is that he does a very good job of capturing that one person at work that you're sort of friends with, that you kind of know is in trouble and you're kind of worried about, but you don't really know how to bring it up. Like, at all.
So Kiv's back, and she's not happy that the fact that we got her drunk.
I actually have not seen this path myself, so...
Oh. Yeah, whenever people ask for drinks, I always just load them up with alcohol, if they're not specific. I'm a bartender, that's what we do, right?
Fair, and you had a lot more money. I think I actually straight up flunked my first game just because I was just being so nice until, like, the end where I was just like, big drinks for everyone, God!
Yeah, there is, I guess you could call it a min-maxing strategy when it comes to Valhalla, in that, like, if patrons are non-specific about whatever they want to order, you should always give them the absolutely most expensive thing.
And make it big if you can. Because then you get double.
Like this beer that Donovan wants.
That's like 400 a pop. That's pretty good stuff.
Though I always found it weird that you have to mix beer.
Yeah.
Like, I understand, like, it's more engaging than just the bottle, like, whenever you do the promo drinks. But, like, what kind of dire future is this that, like, bars are mixing beer, but they also buy, like, Jill buys canned beer.
It's like, what's happened to the beer-making process is just, like... Has, like, the industry collapsed? Does the vital beer-making thing no longer exist? Which would be grains and bacteria, basically. The fact that either of those don't exist already says a lot of problems about this world.
So yeah, that's Donovan for you.
Mm-hmm.
The interview went fine because I could just stare at her boobs. What a great journalist. So Lilim are essentially like replicants, or of any other android of choice from science fiction, and that at this point they're still very much separate from humanity. Like, you can tell Lilim when you see one. Like, it's not like they completely blend in, but they are more or less they're people. They have rights. There's legislation involving them, and they've achieved sapience.
They have implications that they're kind of a bit of an oppressed minority here and there, but they're mostly just walking around, doing their own thing. Like, they have jobs.
It's one of the better subversions of cyberpunk that this game does. Is cyberpunk will use, and science fiction in general will often use androids and robots in general as, metaphors for slavery to varying degrees of success and tact. I stand by Blade Runner being one of the dumbest examples of it, because what were they thinking would happen whenever they gave these robots fake memories of families and then made them forced slave labor and cannon fodder? Did they think they'd like it?
Yeah, well, bad choices were made.
But they all have, I think the big thing that sets this apart from other fiction is that the Lilim know they're not people. They are aware of what they are, but they don't see it as a negative. It's just they're a different kind of person.
And they're just kind of okay with that.
Later on, whenever we meet one of the other characters, Dorothy, she does have a few existential crises here and there, but it's not laid on too heavy.
It's honestly kind of refreshing, all things considered. Like, at most point, like, all of the Lilim have kind of sort of accepted their kind of bizarro existence and how they relate to humans, and it's kind of more of a distinct sort of grief and angst that they feel that kind of doesn't really feel out of place. Like, there isn't any what is this thing you call love or whatever moments. They're all pretty okay. They sort of relate to people all right while still understanding that there's just a fundamentally different sort of they have a different concept of getting hurt, mortality, human values, that sort of stuff, but they don't kind of like make a big deal out of it. They really just kind of feel like a completely relevant and just not flawlessly alchemated by any sense of the word, but kind of believably a part of the rest of the crowd. And honestly, just having a show that's not like, whoa, robots, is kind of a mild subversion in its own right.
Yeah. This is one of the more interesting pieces of, like, world building in this game, I think. In that we live in Glitch City, and it's like 2060 something. Like, this is a fake city that's we later hear is like this sort of weird test bed for robot and Lilim rights and cybernetic augmentation, and it's just this weird kind of cyberpunk wasteland of just let's see what works and let's see what doesn't. And yet still this far into the future where we have in completely new cities occupying the land where old ones were, the China seems to still be more or less the same. There's still like the divide, there's still multiple Chinese languages, they haven't unified into one or whatever happened. It's I'm not sure if this is intentional or if it's just kind of the writers kind of flexing their world knowledge on us. but it does have kind of interesting implications for the world at large, and maybe the rest of the world outside of the city hasn't changed that much.
It does kind of create sort of an interesting thing in that this is just kind of the radical weirdo town.
You actually ordered something different this time.
And cheaper, damn. Muscle memory there.
A little bit. Okay, I did that wrong. Wait for it to blend, and there we go.
So yeah, Donovan's a good person in case you...
Yeah. We kind of talked over it, but he also revealed some more of his character earlier when he was talking about how he learned Chinese. He doesn't know which kind of Chinese because he didn't want to be palling around with some bureaucratic pencil neck translator because he's too much of a man for that.
Now, here's another thing that we're going to get into, which is as we were talking about a little bit earlier, just kind of more of the commentary about, I guess, social justice and just getting upset and kind of the backlash against it, and the subtle ways that this show writes it, in that it does kind of pretty straightforwardly put believably hateful words in characters' mouth and also kind of makes it no small secret that these characters are... The polite word would be not particularly concerned about the politics of their time. And it's one of those things that it is kind of treated with at least some degree of moderation, but they always just kind of leave enough of a note to make it clear that we're not supposed to think that this guy is saying the right thing. I know that there's going to be like another really great discussion about one of the characters talking about their history of actual rights movement that I think is kind of a very good demonstration of just kind of a bit of a subtler theme in what this game is doing and just how to take the frustrating elements of kind of being in a more open world where people are all having there's like an information era where people ultimately have a full stage of their opinions and trying to negotiate the right thing to do. There are a lot of people, for I would say not unfair reasons, who kind of take offense to a lot of the ways they tackled it. And to be fair, I can kind of get why they feel that way, because ultimately Donovan exists and he does take a lot of part. But ahead of the curb is one of the big things that we say a lot in regards to this game, and I would definitely argue that their handling of these issues is certainly ahead of the curb, and that we're ultimately not supposed to empathize with his opinions at all, and I can appreciate that. Gut punch.
It's the most appropriate drink to give him.
Mm-hmm. It's bitter, it's manly, it's strong. How do you have it?
That's also what you want to do to Donovan.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, not only is he here at a bar, he just threw some other kid under the bus to do it.
1 to 4 by the looks of his inability to keep them all straight. God, this is kind of reminding me a little too much of my old bosses. He's no saint, but he's a man. Pretty accurate sum up.
He's at least a man of conviction, if nothing else.
So yeah, we kind of run out a lot. We kind of run out things to talk about this guy a lot. It's just like, Donovan's bad, huh? I can't wait for him to no longer be relevant.
Yeah, one thing that I kind of forgot is, like, I don't know if it was I was just kind of enamored with the atmosphere or just the overall game the first time around, but I kind of forgot how much of it, or maybe I've just been on long enough that I kind of forgot how much of a dirtbag he is. Reading through this again, like, wow.
Wow, he's a filthy creature.
That was tiring, Jill. I agree.
Also reminded me a little too much of my old job. Oh, Dana, thank
Good job, Dana.
Like, you couldn't find that on the internet? That surprises me.
Yeah, like, I feel like
That-
there's probably some kind of survivalist website out there that has information on that.
Come on, I mean, like, we have to have some sort of future Reddit out there.
If we have future 4chan, like,
Tumblr died, DeviantArt dies.
all that's left is 4chan and Reddit. Truly, these are the darkest of times.
Well, that's cyberpunk for you. Preach it, Jill.
No gods or kings, only Dana.
Oh, hey, it's
Hey,
Dorothy.
that's Dorothy.
She'd probably want us to say it just like that, too. To be fair, I think one of
She's
our...
basically Norm. She's basically Norm from Cheers. Norm!
To be fair, like, this is an easy archetype to screw up. The I only look frighteningly underaged. But they handle it pretty well, all things considered.
They handle it in a... Like, again, it's commentary presented without commentary, in a way. Of Dorothy is a sex worker robot. That's what she does. By all accounts, she seems to be self-employed. Which, you know, there's an entirely different discussion about that to be had.
But anyway, maybe we'll save that discussion for another day. But let's
But again, like, cyberpunk has this history of, like, portraying prostitution as being this most dire of straits, and they're not exactly wrong as far as, like, portrayals. Because, like, there's a never-ending circular discussion about prostitution that you could have.
extremely hyper minimalized thing. It's very complicated with a lot of issues, but yeah.
But Dorothy is not downtrodden or disaffected, and she doesn't seem to be negatively affected by her profession. And whether or not that's a good thing, whether that's a positive portrayal and something that media needs, is besides the point. The fact that it's different, both in terms of what we often see sex workers portrayed in media as, and also within the genre itself.
To be fair, she's a prostitute. She doesn't die. I already consider that a point up, and kind of not something you see a lot of.
Yeah.
If anything, she's not punished for the state that put her in this particular position. And at the very minimal least, I can really appreciate that. If they're at the very point, they just tried to make it as her story as possible, and that's really kind of the best thing that you can really do, I think, when treading this very uncomfortable ground, especially since she does tap on things like women's rights, just sex working as an industry, the whole sexualization of minors, all of which are very, very, very icky topics and very easy to screw up.
I think what makes her work is the frankness of her. Like, she just says things, and she says them in a frank, kind of matter-of-fact, this is my reality kind of way. Filtered through her personality, rather than it being, like, you know, this, it's not a sob story, it's not... Like, I've said it way too many times, but I'm just going to keep saying it. She presents the information for us to interpret it for ourselves.
But still gives it just kind of enough of just a drop for us to kind of figure that, just get enough of a message without it really kind of being preachy.
Yeah, because I could see people who read Dorothy as being like this glowing endorsement of, the sex trade and how it kind of undercuts or minimalizes the risks to women both in the industry and outside of it. I could also see how people could read her as being like this sort of commentary on the effects of being a sex worker, both on the self and also to culture at large. And she walks that line of really not giving in too much to either side and letting the reader interpret it for themselves.
Not to mention, I think a lot of it is saved, at least in her explicit presentation. She's kind of not meant to be kind of something for the audience, which I think is another big trap that when you write characters like this to fall into, and just kind of, you get to have your cake and eat it too kind of commentary, and that sure, she's frank and is very upfront in what she does, but at the same time she isn't kind of presented in a way that the audience is supposed to. Ideally just kind of find titillating or just for passive consumption or anything like that. Which I think is kind of another big save, and I think another thing that, at least in portrayals, a lot of people, when touching on these discussions, have a lot of problems with. So that was just a very smart move that they made in kind of sidestepping that particular one as well.
Yeah, because her design is fairly conservative. Like, there's not a lot of exposed skin, though you're only seeing the upper half of her torso and her head. And she's clearly meant to be a call-out to Aegis from the Persona series. Where that's probably more important than anything else about her visual design for the creators of them, because you gotta fit those references in.
Because, like, this is anime reference hell, let's be real.
Yeah.
We will have words. We already do.
We're having them right now.
Huh, yeah, you're right. Plus, also, just kind of her design is just its own thing. It's got a very nice, distinct palette. She's got a thing that's kind of emphasizing more of a silhouette than any sort of, like, secondary sexual characterizations, like her big puffy sleeves and just kind of the stripes, just kind of adding to those accents. She's here to actually be designed as a character, and I can appreciate that.
It would have been very easy just to slap gigantic cleavage on the screen and call it a prostitute and then move on, but they put in more work.
And that alone I can appreciate. Plus Dorothy's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and she also kind of like drops the literally only thing we would have for Ingram, was it? The other scuzzbag.
Yeah. Like but like in the same way, it also kind of, we get kind of hints about Ingram here and there. Never from him himself, really. Mm-hmm. He shows up. Like this is like the biggest hint that you get. That leads from A to B. Like, Ingram said that he did this, and now Dorothy said that she did this. And later on, you get some hints that maybe he had a daughter at some point that passed away.
But that's about as deep as it goes, and it doesn't really have a lot of payoff, but to be fair, it doesn't really come up a lot anyway.
But I really like the way they did it.
I do too. I really do.
It's a hard thing in fiction to make those through lines connect.
Honestly, making through lines connect is this game's specialty, and I think another reason why we both really adore it a lot for it.
Yeah, it would be very easy for those threads to get lost just in the shuffle, but they space them out in ways that, you can remember and call them back and kind of piece together the character for yourself.
And they make it just long enough so that it's distinct and it stands out, and obviously the punchy writing helps, but they don't kind of like hammer you over the head with it too, to the point where it just kind of gets annoying. Like, alright, I get it. I get his daughter's dead. Which I think is another temptation that a lot of writers have when trying to, quote, subtly bring this up.
Yeah. Because it's... Oops, I messed it up.
It's delicious.
So that's probably... If I were to complain about any part of the gameplay, it's the relative lack of consequence when it comes to mixing your drinks. If there's no time constraints for serving your patrons, I don't... Oh, it's on the... That's what I'm forgetting. There's no time constraints, and there's no penalty for messing up drinks, so I could sit here all day just making the wrong drinks, and once I finally make the right one, Dorothy will be just as happy if I had done it the first time. I understand why, though. Like, there's only so much writing a person can do for the various gradients of success or failure for the player. You can't have, you know, every single variable have its own storyline.
Not to mention,
but I would have liked, yeah.
This doesn't also have a free save either, so like you would have to slog through another half a day, and that's kind of can straddle the line between like being okay and just like pointlessly frustrating for no payoff.
But on the same hand, I would have liked there to be a little more stakes to mixing drinks, because what it really comes down to is, rather than, because with the way, you know, Jill, the Jill remembering or not remembering thing is its own mechanic, sort of, but it comes down to choice, the player choice of whether or not they give the correct drink or not, rather than circumstance. It's like, I messed up making this drink, but I have no time left, so I have to give it to them, or don't give them anything. You know, this didn't need to be burger time, but like on the same token, the way the drink mixing goes, it's almost kind of might as well just be picking the completed drinks from a menu.
That is a fair complaint. I hope that as the team really stretches out their legs. They say that they have other projects in the future that they're at least intending to start, that I really would like to see them kind of branch out into kind of, especially since, as I said, the drink making is really distinct and I like it, so I really hope they keep thinking of creative ways to play with that while still kind of making a game.
I think there was more to it in the prologue. There was, I guess you could call them trash customers that don't have stories that you needed to serve, as well as the characters that did have stories. And there's also, I think there was more time constraints involved with at the very least, like how much you got paid was determined by how quickly you were serving the drinks. It's been a while since I've played the prologue. I'm probably misremembering this, but I just would have liked to see there just to be more consequence involved with the drink making. So this is in no way, shape, or form Adam Jensen.
Absolutely not. Look at that.
He only has one eye thing instead of two. Completely different. But he's also the next in the trend of just like cyberpunk subversions of Jamie's an assassin. He kills for a living, but he's a pretty nice and almost jocular gentleman. Like, he's not this like super brooding, quiet, mysterious type. Like, he talks to people, and
he's honestly pretty honest about what he does.
Yeah, like he doesn't hide what he does, but like he's also just not this bitter, cynical, you know, murder machine.
He just kind of treats it as a job. Not like the funnest job in the world, but it's a job.
In the same way that like Dorothy does. Almost.
I would say that's a fair comparison, all things considered. Not to mention, he's also kind of... I remember you saying a lot about just kind of how he subverts the cyberpunk, and also just kind of being sort of what would have been the actual protagonist in a traditional cyberpunk story, but he's just kind of not. He's the most significant character in the cast, you could almost say.
Yeah, like had Valhalla been made 10 years ago, Jamie would have been the main character. And we would have been worse off for it.
We would have been much worse off.
I really like the fact that she gives discounts for dinner.
Oh, room and board. So yeah, about that frankness.
Yeah. Sometimes it's to a fault.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's a very unnatural line of dialogue, even for Dorothy.
Yeah. Unless she's trying to creep him out.
Yeah.
Anyway, another thing that I kind of like about Jamie is that he's very, very affable, but you can still kind of tell that he's kind of more friends with Gil than you. I don't know why, you just kind of don't really have a friend-type character that's like that, but just kind of works in a bar setting. Like, it's obviously like he's not mean to you, or like he doesn't want anything to do with you or anything like that. He's just gets along with Gil a little better.
Yeah, most of the time whenever he comes in, you'll serve him like a drink or so, and then he'll go to talk with Gil.
I guess dark and brooding past buddies.
And I think that also serves to, even if we don't really get to see it, I think it helps, you know, give a little more to Gil's character than what we see, which is not a whole lot.
All the many ways this game characterizes, though, you could write a lot about it.
That's, yeah. Mm-hmm. The game's aware. That's a pretty good summation of it.
The game is also aware.
Yeah, it's almost on the nose.
Also, another personal gripe I have is the emasculating Gil jokes kind of get a little old fast for my taste.
Yeah, it comes to a head much later where it gets real bad. Mm-hmm. But there's always this undercurrent of just kind of making fun of Gil for no real reason other than he's there to be made fun of.
It's funny because it's a bunch of women ganging up on the guy. Sexism is over.
We solved it. This is true egalitarianism here.
Let's just both be big jerks. What the hell is a spicy drink? It sounds disgusting.
I'm not into that.
Deep, man.
That's great. I love because he tries to act all this big and tough, and like rather than really just admit that he's lying, he just tries to put on this like super philosophical.
I try to keep everything as clean as possible with, like, my super robot visor and my gigantic multi-tendon robot arm.
Yeah, he's very inconspicuous.
Blends right in. Though, to be fair, when, like, your normal dude has, like, Frankenstein bullets all up his neck, he's honestly not that big of a standout.
True.
And plus, we haven't met Stella yet.
Yeah, then you have him dropping hints that, like, yeah, if I went nuts because of my robot parts, Dana could handle it.
Who would win a mechanical arm wrestling contest? I'm guessing he's implying it's Dana.
Yeah.
Though still, that thing's huge. And off to break.
I think the choice to relegate saving to breaks was a pretty smart one, So if only for because it means that you just can't save scum your way through the game and try to get all of your dialogue the first time around.
And plus, just to keep it simple.